Okay, good morning, friends. So in the last 4 classes, we discussed about agricultural meteorology, soils, manures and fertilizers, then tillage practices, weeds and weed control, and cropping systems, different methods of cropping patterns as such. We also discussed about production or preparation of the soil and methods of sowing and plant protection, harvest of main fruit crops such as rice, wheat, maize, and millets such as sorghum, bajra, ragi, korra, etc. We also discussed about various pulses such as black gram, green gram, red gram, Bengal gram, etc. We also discussed in the earlier classes about fat or oil yielding plants such as groundnut, castor, sesame, safflower, sunflower, etc. So this is about food crops. So in the last class we discussed about various food crops, the methods of their raising, harvest, etc. And as you know, food that is in the form of carbohydrates we get from main food crops such as cereals or millets. We get our pulses or proteins through our pulses. Then fat requirements is met by taking oil seeds or oil produced from oil seeds. Now, this is about food crops. Now, the second or the next important crop or crops for the healthy family system of a farmer is he has to get some cash. That is, the crops that are grown to ease his cash requirements are known as cash crops. So under cash crops, we discuss about sugarcane, cotton, tobacco. These are the three major cash crops. Apart from that, we also discuss about the spices as such as chilies, turmeric, ginger, and coriander. So in today's class, that is which runs for about 1 hour from now, we discuss about sugarcane, cotton, tobacco, chilies, turmeric, ginger, and coriander. To begin with sugarcane, we'll begin with sugarcane. As you know, sugarcane is a very, very important cash crop. Now, sugarcane is being grown in India from the times immemorial, and we grow sugarcane, or we get our sugar from sugarcane. Whereas in Western countries, especially in case of US, USR, and then Europe, they get sugar from beetroot, or what we call sugar beet. But in India, it is not popular, or most of our sugar or jaggery we get from cane juice. So now, coming to the history, generally it is believed that sugarcane originated in Indian subcontinent, and now sugarcane is grown in almost all the countries which are on either side of the equator, mostly, where temperatures are high, where rainfall is good, where heavy soils or deltoid soils or alluvial soils are available, where bright sunlight is available. In those areas, generally farmers prefer to grow sugarcane. Now, once Cuba used to be called as the sugar bowl of the world. Now we are proud to say that India ranks first as far as sugar production is concerned. Now in India, generally sugar of the 50 or 50% of the 55% of the sugar cane is grown for making jaggery, and the rest of the 40-45% of sugar cane is transported to sugar mills where sugar is manufactured. Now, coming to the, leading countries, as I already told you, India, Brazil, Cuba, USA, Indonesia, USR, or Russia, Japan, Taiwan, Cuba. These are some of the leading countries. Coming to India, in almost all the states, except Jammu and Kashmir and parts of Himachal, in almost all the states of India, the sugarcane is grown. Now, the Gangetic plains having alluvial soils are, preferred for raising the sugarcane. Thus, UP and Bihar accounts for roughly more than 50% of the cane production in India. Now, apart from UP and Bihar, coming to south, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka. These are some of the even parts of Madhya Pradesh, even Orissa. These are the areas where sugarcane cultivation is taken up on a large scale. Now, the sugarcane, as I already told you, it requires alluvial black, red, or alluvial soils or loam soils, which have the high efficiency of moisture retaining capacity. Now, sugarcane is a tropical plant, and which requires tropical climates such as high temperature, light, and moisture contents. Generally, above 50 degrees centigrade is detrimental for the sugarcane crop, and generally the areas where the annual rainfall is more than 750 millimeters is considered as an ideal place to take up this sugarcane cultivation. Now, generally, sugarcane varieties, of course, Saccharum officinarum is the scientific name of sugarcane, and it falls under what we call Poaceae. Now, there are primarily three, based on the time taken for their maturity. They are broadly divided into three categories or varieties: early maturing varieties, medium or mid-season maturing varieties, and late season maturing varieties. Generally, early maturing varieties take some 10 months, and medium, they take 11 to 12 months, whereas late maturing varieties require more than 1 year, maybe 12 to 13 months is needed for their maturity. Now, generally, the early maturing varieties, they have a good yield, but their sugar content is a bit less. Generally, the early maturing varieties are needed, to open the sugar mills. They supply the cane for the early start of sugar mills. Now, the sugar cane, as far as cultivation is concerned, generally the land preparation, as already told you, it requires heavy soils or the soils which have high moisture retaining ability. Blood cotton soils or alluvial soils or clayey soils are very good for this sugarcane cultivation. Generally, thorough, 2 to 3 thorough ploughings are taken up by the farmer. Then leveling is done by using blade harrow, etc. And before the onset of, of course, generally, as generally the plantation or seeding of the sugarcane is not taken up early, unlike all other crops, all our cereals, pulses, etc. Generally either in kharif or in rabi. But unlike that, generally the seeding or seeding of this sugarcane is taken up mostly from the months of December or November, December to March as such. Generally, the early maturing varieties come for harvest in the month of after Diwali, what we call. After Diwali, generally, after November or so, generally, early maturing varieties are cut and they are sent to sugar mills, because their sugar content or sucrose content is very less. Generally, they are not preferred for making jaggery. So generally, of course, farmer gets a good weight. Yield will be very, because water content and the weight of the cane is very high as far as the early maturing varieties are concerned, but sugar yield will be a bit less. So here, generally, you see, unlike other crops, sugarcane, here we don't raise the sugarcane with seeds. Generally, here the seed means the stem itself. The stem itself having 1 feet or so, having 1 or 2 nodal portions with 2 or 3 buds. Generally, if you observe very closely, a cane, sugarcane, at the node you will see 1 or 2 buds. Those buds, they sprout. When you plant them in the soil, in the muddy soil, or which is having a lot of moisture, the bud sprouts and produces a stem, a branch. So here the buds. So the pieces, the sugarcane pieces, generally the seed material is taken up from the top 1/3 of the sugarcane. The top 1/3 of the sugarcane, which has immature part of the cane and having green leaves, that is best suited for seed. And even farmer will not be losing a lot, because that area contains little amount of sugar, and generally factories people, they don't like that. So that portion which is very young part is taken and is cut into pieces, and each piece having 2 or 3 buds is taken as a seed, and that will be planted in a already prepared field. So generally it is planted. Generally, when the crop is harvested, soon after harvest, generally either farmer goes for what we call second crop by what we call ratoon cropping, or if he takes up a new field, then after harvest, whatever the young stem pieces are concerned, they are taken as a seed and that will be planted there. So here, season starts from December to March or so. So here, seed material, as I already told you, generally here seed material consists of seed sets having 2 or 3 buds. Then in some cases, these seed buds are planted en masse very closely and flooded with water after covering with soil, and they sprout, and you get so many branches or suckers fill in. And these branches, and they are separated by cutting at the internodal portion. From each piece you may get 2 or 3 young seed having branches, and that part is planted in the main field. So one is seed taken from the harvested crop, or raising short nursery from the short nursery, which is exclusively raised for the seed material. Or third method is, in some cases, the entire stem is there, that stem, from top to bottom, at each node you find 2 or 3 buds. Now here, what the new technique is, by using a sharp knife or an implement, a part of the bud along with a part of the stem is cut in the form of a chip, and that either it will be planted in the nursery or in the main field. So these are the 3 or 4 methods of what we call making seed material. In exam, you may get a question on this. What are the types of seed materials that are used in raising a sugar cane? So seed sets having 2 or 3 buds, or a nursery raised exclusive for seed material, or tillers, or tillers with internodal cuts, and these tillers are planted, or chip with a piece of matured stem that can also be used as a seed. So these are the 4 different seed materials that are commonly used in raising a new sugarcane crop. Now, now the other thing is, in examination point of view, they will also ask you methods of planting. Methods of planting is also very, very important. And here, primarily there are three methods of planting. One is flat planting, the other is furrow planting, the third is trench planting. Flat planting means, of course, the the field is prepared in advance. Then these pieces, seed material is taken, and generally before planting, generally light flooding, irrigation is given so that this can be placed in a moist environment. So these are placed in some cases, especially in Godavari districts, it is raised on a flat bed. And flat bed, they are planted, they are placed on the soil, top soil, in a line, and then generally they are pressed into the soil deep by 5 to 6 centimeters. Then irrigation is given. This is what we call flat planting. Second is furrow planting, wherein by using a country plow or a tractor drawn cultivator or so is employed, and whatever the furrow that is made, in that furrows, pieces of these seed material, the young 1 or 2 nodes and internodal pieces having 1 or 2 or 3 buds, that is planted in the furrow, and later on they will be covered with the soil so that they remain 5 centimeters deep in the soil. This is furrow plantation. Third is what we call trench planting. In some areas, shallow trenches are made, and into them these sets are placed and covered with the soil. Now, the trench planting, of course, it requires a lot of labor, but the thing is, it has been proved that the yield in trench plantation is quite remarkable when compared to the two other things. And the other thing is, lodging will not take place generally, because when the plant comes for maturation, if there are rains or if there is a gust of wind, there is every possibility for the lodging of the falling of the cane. So if you take up this raising in trenches, they remain upright. There is no danger of falling or lodging. This is the beauty of trench plantation. Now coming to the these fertilizers, generally it shows good response for the fertilizer, and you can give either farmyard manure or compost or nitrogen, phosphorus, potash, and it shows good response for the, and generally nitrogen is given in splits, whereas potash and phosphorus are given in one dose just before or during the preparation of the field itself. Of course, generally in order to retain the moisture, generally mulching is taken up. So mulching is nothing but covering the soil with the trash, maybe sugarcane leaves or husk or other things. They are placed on the, because the sugarcane is a long duration. It comes for harvest, almost it takes 1 year. So if there are no rains, if your irrigation suffers from water shortage, in that cases you can cover the soil surface with this trash to retain the moisture. This is what we call mulching. Though this mulching helps not only retaining the what we call moisture, but also it checks the weed menace. It checks them. So now there are two important terms you get in sugarcane cultivation, what we call wrapping and propping. Wrapping is nothing but wrappers, what we call. If you take books, you cover it with a wrapper, what we call a cover. So here wrapper means, generally wrapping means the sugarcane stems are there, it has leaves. Now the lower leaves, generally they get dried and they fall off, exposing the stem to the sunlight. If the bright sunlight is there, if the temperatures are high, there is every possibility for the cracking of the stem. So to avoid that, to minimize the exposure to the sunlight, generally the leaves of the cane are twined. wrapped around the stem. This is what we call wrapping. And propping is, I told you, except in trench plantation, if it is furrow or a flat bed plantation, in that cases, generally, there is every possibility for the lodging. To check the lodging, generally, the canes of adjoining lines, they are brought together and they are tied with the what we call leaves of the canes themselves. Or if you have bamboo sticks can be planted here and there at regular intervals, and this can be used as a base to give support for the canes. This is what we call propping. So propping and wrapping, these are the things. Now generally, when it comes for harvest, of course, if you take a small cut and if you observe, if it is brightly shining, that shows that it is ready for harvest. If you get liquid oozing, that is still immature. And even we have gadgets like a refractometer that can be used to check the sucrose content of the sugar cane. Now the other important thing is jaggery making as far as the exam is concerned. So now generally after harvest, they are cut to the bottom level or the the field level. They're cut either using sickles or by axe, etc. They're cut to the base level and cleaned. All the leaves are removed, and of course, a top 1/3 will be separated. That will be used as a as a what we call seed material, and the other it will be cleaned and sent to crushing machines where the sugarcane liquid is squeezed from that, and this will be boiled in big containers of iron. This will be boiled, and when boiling, when it is about to boil, then you will see white fumes and white and greenish material, what we call colloidal substances, will float on the container, and that will be removed, and it will be further boiled. And if you boil it for more than 1.5 or 2 hours, then it becomes like a thick syrup-like thing, and then it will be poured on a cool areas where special areas are prepared, and after cooling, generally by using sticks, generally it will be mixed thoroughly. Then it will be put into various molds. So this is what we call jaggery. And one more thing is, the squeezed or the cane sugar is acidic in nature. So in order to bring it to neutral condition, lime is added. So lime sucrate is added into that so that its pH becomes neutral. So adding this what we call lime water or lime sucrate is added and boiled and cooled and then put in molds. So this is your jaggery. Then we move to various diseases and pests. Generally white grub is there, mites are there, and shoot borer is there, and stem borer and leaf hoppers are some of the insects that cause damage to the crop. And apart from that, even sugarcane suffers from certain diseases such as smut. Smut of sugarcane is there. Red rot of sugarcane, you are familiar with. Intermediate, you have read. Chloritotrichum falcatum causes red rot of sugarcane. And cephalosporium causes what we call wilt diseases, and red stripe disease is caused by xanthomonas. So these are some of the diseases and the insect menace. So they can be checked by treating the seed material. The seed material has to be treated before plantation. It has to be treated. So treating here what we call keeping the sets for a few minutes in hot water of 52 degrees centigrade or so, and generally by thoroughly cleaning them and treating with what we call chemicals. Certain chemicals are used to So hot water treatment is there. Then carbondism is used so that by dipping in carbondism, you can check. You can check various diseases and eggs of various insects. Then we move to what we call the other important cash crop, that is cotton. Cotton is the another very, very important cash crop. Cotton is nothing but Gossypium. Gossypium genus is the Gossypium. There are 4 important cotton varieties that are grown, that are popular in India. 4 species as such: Gossypium herbaceum, Gossypium arboreum, Gossypium hirsutum, and Gossypium barbadense. These are the 4 important species that are currently popularly cultivated across India. Now, India, cotton is considered to be a native of India, of course, and Indians are considered as the people who first wore or made cotton, raised cotton and woven into cloth, and they are considered as the first people who used clothing. And this goes to 4,000 years from now, 4,000 years BC. Then or during the Vedic period itself, Indians had the knowledge of raising this cotton. Now, cotton is one of the prime basic needs of human being. Every human being needs what we call 3 important requirements, what we call roti, kapda, or makan. So kapda, what we call, you get from this cotton. So now, generally, this is also a tropical crop. This grows mostly in tropics, and generally the countries like Russia, USA, China, India, Brazil, Pakistan, Turkey, Egypt, Sudan, Mexico. These are the leading countries of cotton growing. And India, ranks first as far as acreage is concerned, but as far as the yield is concerned, it ranks only 4th. Now, in India, generally 76% of the cotton is grown in rainy season. But if you have irrigation facilities, this you can take up either as a rabi or as a summer crop. Now, generally in India, the southern peninsula, Deccan Plateau, is famous for cotton, because here we have heavy soils, clayey soils, black cotton soils. Now, Maharashtra, Gujarat rank first. Of course, thereafter, United Andhra Pradesh, and even Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh. These are the areas, even Punjab and Haryana, where cotton is grown on large tracts of soil. Now, this cotton, an important cash crop, and you'll be surprised, it is not an exaggeration to say that it is the cotton on which crores of people depend directly or indirectly for their livelihood. It is the crop which provides employment for crores of people. This is the crop. This is the leading crop, because, for starting from farmers, farm laborers, the factories, ginning mills, power looms, the cloth makers, the cloth sellers, even tailors and consumers. It provides employment to crores of people. So crores of people depend on cotton or cotton products for their livelihood. Now, in India, as I already told you, Gossypium, Herbaceum, Arboreum, Hirsutum, these are 3 are famous, but of course, Barbadense is also grown in some areas. Generally, Gossypium, Arboreum, and Herbaceum are considered as old world cottons, whereas Gossypium, Hirsutum, and Barbadense are considered as new world cotton. New world cottons are tetraploids, whereas old world cottons are diploids. Now, generally, the old world cottons, generally they are late maturing, and the yield is less. Even the staple length of the cotton is minimal. Whereas hybrid varieties such as Gossypium hirsutum and Barbadans, they have good staple length and the luster is very good and their ability to woven is very good. And even this tensile strength is very appreciable. So that's why people are growing for, even the demand for that is more. Even farmer gets good price for these hybrid varieties. But only thing is they are susceptible for various pests and diseases. That is there. So that's why nowadays, even you heard, what we call BT cotton, we read about, wherein there is a what we call genetically modified GM crops. Once a GM crop is cotton, wherein because farmers are put to great losses by the input cost is going up and farmers used to, debt ridden and going for what we call unfortunate suicides also. So to avoid that, especially Myco and other companies have developed what we call GM crops or genetically modified crops, wherein you need not spray any insecticide, but because the plant itself produces the poison in their leaves, and any insect larval which feeds on that sap, it dies on its own. So that is genetically modified. So all these hybrids, early maturing and remunerative, and even they cut your input costs. So that's why slowly but steadily people are going for this cultivation of these hybrid crops. So generally, I already told you, this is a kharif crop, generally soon after what we call early showers of June and July. And generally it comes for harvest after 4 or 5 months. And generally this is the season. Now this is the generally kapas picking, what we call from the bolls, starts in the month of what we call December, and it extends to February last week or so. Generally pickings, not one, generally 4 or 5 pickings are done with an interval of 1 week or so. So here land is prepared thoroughly, and of course seed, earlier we used to grow for what we call the desi varieties, but now hybrid seeds are very costly. That's why they are planted. They are put in the soil at a well-defined distances, and you get good sprouting, and of course you get good yields. So here the cotton also shows good response for manures and fertilizers. If you give sufficient manures and fertilizers, your crop comes up very well and you get good yields. Now here generally as far as the harvest is concerned, generally in case of Western countries, they spray certain chemicals so that the leaves are shed and only the cotton balls are left, and by using machines they harvest. But in India and other developing countries, because we have sufficient labor available, that's why generally we employ labor and to pick these kapas from the capsules of this cotton. Now they generally the cotton, what we call the quality of the cotton depends on what we call 4 or 5 important points are there. One is what we call the ginning percentage, and fibers length, staple length, what we call fiber fineness, fiber strength, I told you, fiber maturity, and spinning quality, and the color, and the trash content. These are some of the quality or characteristics based on which your cotton is estimated and priced. Now generally this cotton, it suffers from various pests and diseases. Generally important pests include jaws, aphids, and white flies are there, cotton thrips are there, and spotted bollworm is there, and pink bollworm. These are some of the insects that cause a lot of damage to the cotton crop. And the diseases include, wilt. Wilt, Fusarium oxysporum causes wilt, and root rot caused by Rhizoctonia fungus, and black arm, what we call angular leaf spot, is caused by Xanthomonas campestris. These are some of the diseases and pests that cause a lot of damage to the cotton crop. So how to check that? How to check the diseases and pests is seed treatment. So the seeds, the copas is nothing but epidermal hairs of the seed. So those, epidermal hairs are to be removed. They can be removed by what we call dipping in sulfuric acid. Keeping the seed in sulfuric acid for a minute or so, it removes the fuzz or the fibers that are there. Along with that, whatever the eggs of the insects or the pathogens, maybe your fungal spores or the bacterial spores, which are very likely to be present on the seed surface, get killed. Even, crop rotation is the best thing. Go on changing the crops and see that well sanitated. So your field and your hedges are kept clean, and weeding has to be taken up at frequent intervals. And, it requires, there are certain areas, especially times, flowering and, ball formation. These are very sensitive to water's, scarcity. So those times, the moisture has to be maintained. But of course, too much flooding will be detrimental, because there will be fall of what we call early fall of these balls will be there, and the leaf shed will be there, ball shed will be there. So that should be avoided. So as in when you see generally when leaves become what we call dry like or drooping at 4 p.m. or so, then you should think that this is the time to give flooding. Generally, because this is a kharif crop, generally rain fed. Rains, now you will see it is 2 or 3 rains in a month. So that rain is sufficient for kharif crop. But of course, if it is a rabi or a summer crop, of course, you have assured irrigation facility. There you can get good crops. So then we move to what we call the third cash crop is what we call tobacco. Tobacco is what we call Nicotiana tabacum, a member of Solanaceae. And as far as tobacco is concerned, tobacco, it is not a native of India, but of course, Portuguese have introduced this from Persia, Iran and West Asia. From that, Portuguese have brought the seeds, and of course, now this is popular and grown across the world. And generally, it is also a tropical crop. It is also a tropical crop, and generally it needs a loam soils. Loam and light soils are very good for raising this crop. And generally here, the quality of the tobacco depends on, the soil where you are growing, and the climatic conditions, and the air moisture, and the soil moisture, and the sunlight, etc. These are some of the environmental conditions that determine the quality of the tobacco you get from a given field. Now, as far as India is concerned, this Andhra. So Andhra area is very famous for cultivation, especially Guntur, Prakasham, Nellore, and Godavari districts, and Srikakulam, Vijayanagaram. These are the areas where this is grown on a large tracts. And generally, as far as tobacco is concerned, tobacco, people use tobacco for making what we call cigars, for cigarettes, for chewing, for hookahs, for snuff, for pan masala, etc. These are some of the products and byproducts of tobacco. Now, of course, government is discouraging, this tobacco, because doctors say that, the taking up this tobacco leads to what we call mouth cancer, and even smoking leads to what we call, damage to your lungs. So it may lead to what we call lung cancer. So why people go for this, why people get addicted to this tobacco is tobacco has what we call in its leaves, what we call nicotine, an alkaloid that is responsible for getting, some people say after taking a cigarette, they feel relaxed, they get fresh. It is because of under what we call nicotine effect. Now, generally, we have generally Nicotiana tabacum and Nicotiana rustica. These are the famous varieties that are commonly grown. But of course, in Andhra Pradesh, United Andhra Pradesh, generally this Nicotiana tabacum, which is tall and long, which is used in making cigars, cigarettes, BDs, smoking, and this quality tobacco is obtained from Guntur, Nellore, and Prakasham districts. Virginia tobacco, which is very famous and highly priced tobacco, is cultivated in these 3 districts of Andhra. So generally, of course, this is apart from this, Punjab, Bengal, Bihar are some of the areas where this is also cultivated. Generally, in other areas, so what we call Natu tobacco is also there, but cigarette tobacco is very famous, and important varieties are JS3 is there, Gautami is there, Hema. These are the famous varieties or high-yielding varieties that are popular in the tobacco growing areas of Andhra region. Now, this tobacco, generally, first of all, a seed bed or seedlings. Seed bed is prepared, then field is prepared, and when moisture is there, generally this from that nursery, these young plants of tobacco are taken and they are transplanted in the field. Now it takes 6 months or so, 5 to 6 months for the maturation of this tobacco. And generally, black cotton soils, I told you, generally loamy soils, light loamy soils are very good for the cultivation of this. And generally, this tobacco, you have to understand 2 important terms you get when you study about the tobacco. One is what we call topping and desuckering. Generally, topping is here the economically important part is leaf. So of course, it after 2 months of your transplantation, of course, it grows vigorously, and then it enters into what we call reproductive phase by producing flowers. So here, nipping, removal of the apical bud or your inflorescence is what we call nipping or topping, and desuckering is here you will see some branches coming. If branches are there, that is also detrimental for the good yield of good quality of tobacco. So nipping or removal of the suckers and removal of the top bud is what we call topping. So topping and desuckering, or these are done in order to enhance the size of the tobacco leaf and the quality of the tobacco leaf. So both you get you improve the physical and the chemical properties of the tobacco leaf by nipping and by desucking. Of course, weed control has to be done. Of course, there is what we call a complete root parasite, what we call Orobanki. In some of the areas, this root parasite is common. So one has to be very careful that your field is not infested with Orobanki. So generally, it comes, I told you, more than after plantation or after transplanting, after 75 or 80 days, you will see slowly the lower leaves getting turning into yellow color, light yellow. Then you should think that the crop has come for maturity. So generally, the harvest is done by 2 means, what we call priming and stock out method. Priming and stock out method are the 2 methods of harvesting. Priming means here the lower leaves come but start turning yellow. So then you separate the matured leaves one after the other, and after weeks, at weeks interval, generally you prime it or separate the matured leaves at frequent intervals. That is what we call priming. And the stocking, stock out method means you cut the entire plant. So when you cut, generally top leaves will be generally in an immature condition. So here you separate them. Immature one separate, and fully matured one separate, and moderately matured one. That is how you have to separate them. So after harvest, the important thing you have to learn is curing. Curing is important. So curing is nothing but what we call regulated drying of the harvested leaves. Regulated drying of the harvested leaf is what we call curing, and the curing process is done especially by flow curing and air curing, sun curing, and pit curing. These are some of the fire curing. These are the 5 methods generally used for curing. So I told you curing, when you harvest, generally leaf has some 70 to 80% of the moisture. So this moisture has to be reduced to maybe less than 10%. So for that, you have to put it either in sun or under shade, or you go for what we call mechanical method of what we call flow curing, wherein, so generally tobacco, Virginia tobacco making or cigarette tobacco making, those people, they dry the harvested ones in separately, what we call barns, where the temperature and the moisture of that chamber is maintained. Moisture and temperature of that chamber is maintained. That what we call barn generally. This is what we call flue curing. Now, generally in flue curing, in that barn, generally that will be heated up by using coal, wood, or paddy husk, etc. And the temperature will be slowly raised by 2 degrees or so. When it reaches, 105 degree Fahrenheit, that is the threshold for turning. So this takes, some 2 days or so. So then you stop the fire, and then you take out these generally. These leaves are, tied to bamboo sticks. They're hanged over these bamboo sticks, and these bamboo sticks are put in this barn where regulated temperature and moisture are maintained. So after maybe 25 or 30 hours, generally you take out them, you dry them, and this is one method. And in other, sun curing, when generally cigars and chewing tobacco, where sun curing is taken up. So these are hanged over bamboo sticks or on what we call these jute threads, and kept in sun. So it may take 7 to 10 days for the complete drying of those leaves. And the other is what we call pit curing. So after whatever the case may be, generally when you cut, generally when you stock out cut method is there, you have used then, or the immature ones, etc., whatever you have harvested, those leaves in pit curing, wherein you make a pit. You make pits of 1 to 1.5 meter width and squarish, and depth also of same 1 meter depth. And generally you smother. So base and the sides are smothered, and see that mud or the soil will not fall on the harvested leaves which are put in the pit. So generally the pit is half filled with the harvested leaves, and then over that either palmyra leaves or straw of what we call rice is put, and over that the soil is put, so that air will not enter into it. So the farmer waits for 1 or 1.5 days, at the most 2 days. Then he opens that and takes out the tobacco leaves that are put in the pit, and that will be transferred into the second pit. So like this, repeated transfer from one pit to other pit is taken, and it takes 1 week or so. By the time the leaf gets or leaf loses whatever the water content that is there, and it emits sweet smell or tobacco smell, and even its color, attractive color develops. This, so in curing, uh, you will you are drying the leaves, and you are changing the physic of the leaf, and also the chemical properties of the leaf are changed, so that the tobacco leaf emits sweet smell. Okay, now the quality of the tobacco, where the market people generally they assess. They assess the quality of your tobacco based on the color of the leaf, the size of the leaf, aroma of the leaf, and its burning properties also taken, and the sugar content, and finally the filling ability. That is, if you are making cigarettes, it should be able to easily filled with the paper. That's cigarette. So that cigarettes, here the filling quality is also taken into consideration while awarding price for your produce. Now, generally, the tobacco also suffers from aphids, and stem borers are there, white flies are there, shoot bug is there, and apart from this, this is also attacked by a nematode. A nematode, Meridogyne, a nematode that infests the root system and causes a lot of damage to the crop. And the fungal diseases include damping off disease, and frog eye leaf spot disease, and powdery mildew disease, and angular leaf spot are some of the fungal diseases and bacterial diseases that are commonly encountered in this tobacco. Now, this is about tobacco. Then we move to the other things. They are the spices. Now, the spices, as far as spices is concerned, we will learn under spices chili. We learn about chilies. We learn about turmeric. We learn about ginger. We learn about dhania. These are the four. They fall under what we call spices. Spices are the condiments. Now, chilies, chilies. This doesn't belong to India, and it was introduced to India by Portuguese in 17th century. And before that, Indians used to, put pepper into their foodstuffs. But with the introduction of chilies, now chili has become very popular, and across India, you go to any household, generally, in all households, generally chili is used as an important condiment. Now, generally, it is capsicum frutescens, or capsicum annuum is the scientific name. It belongs to Solanaceae member, and the hardness, what we call, is due to capsaicin. Capsaicin is the chemical that is responsible for the hotness of these chilies. Now, generally, chilies are used, two forms. Generally, green chilies we use, or red chilies generally we use. And this pungency, as I already told you, because of the capsaicin. In addition to that, is also rich in vitamin A and vitamin C. Now, it is grown in almost all South American, Central American, Asia, East Asia countries. In India, it is grown in large tracts, especially Andhra Pradesh, ranks first as far as this chili production is concerned, United Andhra Pradesh. But of course, in Telangana, in Warangal, Warangal, the other day we have seen, even in TV, a farmer, it fetched, the quintal mirchi, the prices offered was something like 70 to 80,000. Last year, it was costlier than what we call gold. So now this year, a farmer, for his novel produce, which was what we call mechanically cured, here also cured, and when you use a dryer for curing, generally that produce develops a glassy structure and a luster, redness, that fetches you high price. So Now this in this as far as this chili is concerned, generally it needs it is generally a kharif crop. Of course, this is available now throughout the year nowadays. And generally, if you are growing for red chili, generally it is sown in the month of generally June and July. And of course, if it is a rabi crop, generally the transplantation will be taken up in the month of September or October, and you get your produce. This is the season from March, April. By the end of March, you get the complete harvest. So generally, by two ways, generally by sowing the seed or by transplantation. These are the two methods of raising this. Generally, it doesn't need a lot of moisture. If rains are more, then there is a problem with what we call flower and fruit drop. Fruit drop will be there, flower drop will be there, even leaf drop will be there. So generally, they are very sensitive to weeds. That's why 3 to 4 weedings are done at monthly, at regular intervals. So generally, this suffers from what we call number of diseases such as thrips and chili pod borer is there, chili aphids are there, and diseases coming, damping of diseases there, cercospora leaf spots are there, and fruit rot are, these are some of the diseases and pests that cause a lot of damage. Now, as far as the exam is concerned, you have to, the important thing is methods of drying of this drying. Methods of drying of chili is very, very important as far as your exam is concerned. Generally, after harvest, generally drying of chilies is taken up in the specially prepared what we call drying floors. If that area is sandy area, generally that is very good for a quick drying of the harvested. And if your area has block soil or other soils, generally you can bring these cartloads of sand and you can spread it in a thin layer over the specialized platform that you have prepared. There you can dry it. Or if you don't get sand, you can prepare this drying platform by using what we call a blade harrow, or by using hose or etc. Level it, and you can flow this floor by sprinkling water and by using logs, etc. You make it you make the soil very compact. So that soil drying floor becomes very compacted. On that compacted area, you can dry your produce. But the best thing is this what we call the drying. Generally, drying that is done by what we call air-blown dryer. Air-blown dryer, this is a mechanical device. Air-blown dryer is used wherein temperature will be of 44 to 46 degrees centigrade is maintained, so that within 18 to 24 hours, you can dry your entire produce. And by air dryer method, as already told you, you get good color and the glossy texture. So it glossy texture will be there, and a deep red color will be there. That fetches you high price. So drying is either in open fields or in specialized, specially prepared platforms, or air dryer. These are three ways of what we call drying. But open drying, open in the field, if you go for the drying, there is every possibility when there is a gust of wind, etc. Even the trash, etc., will come and contaminate your produce. So thereby, the quality of the your produce gets diminished. Even in that drying, you need to look after. You have to wait for 7 to 10 days. But if you go for what we call mechanical air dryer method, within a day, you will be able to produce the fully dried material, and that is ready for marketing. Then we move to what we call turmeric. Turmeric, India ranks apart from red gram, sugar, peanuts, etc. Turmeric also produced on India ranks first as far as turmeric is concerned. And generally in almost all the districts, this is grown. In Telangana, generally Nizamabad and Karimnagar, and in Andhra, Guntur and Krishna is there. Rayalaseema, Kadapa, Kurnool are there, and coastal Srikakulam, Vizag. In every area, in every districts, every region of the United Andhra Pradesh, you will see this turmeric is raised on large tracts. Now, generally, we have, this comes for harvest. It takes 8 to 9 months for the harvest, and generally, medium duration varieties may come for harvest 8, and the early ones may take at least 7 months for the harvest. So generally, it shows good response for the man use. Generally, it needs what it is it is also a tropical crop and needs heavy soils. Generally, black cotton soils, moisture retaining are very good for this. But the water should not remain stagnant. That should not be there. And the seed, generally seed used here is what we call the rhizomes. There, of course, in this ginger and in case of turmeric, both belong to the same family, and both have rhizomes. And in both the cases, generally we use what we call the mother rhizomes, or the finger rhizomes are used as the seed material. Generally, after preparation of the soil, generally these are planted. Generally, during the monsoon season only. Generally, the sowing is taken up in the month of what we call first week of June. Generally, when there are showers, generally this seeding is taken up. Generally, in both ginger and turmeric. Generally, the fingers. Generally, the rhizome fingers are generally used as the seed material, and they take for the sprouting. For the foliage to appear, it takes 1 month or so. So during this period, you have to see that the weeds are not there. You clean, you go for what we call intercultivation with hand weeding or using blade harrows, etc. And it may, depending on the soil, it may require 15 to 20 irrigations for the turmeric. And generally, when the harvesting, the leaves they get dried. Then the entire foliage is lost. Then that is the time for the ploughing. By using country plough, generally it will be unearthed. It will be deep in the soil. It will be unearthed, and by employing laborers, the rhizomes are cleaned with whatever the soil that is there, and they'll be heaped. And generally, here also curing process takes place. Here, curing means the separated. The mother rhizomes and daughter rhizomes are separated, and they're put into what we call big iron containers and heated, and in the water. And on boiling, generally you will see white fumes coming, and you get aroma, good aroma. That is the time. And when you, by taking a small broomstick, etc., if you pierce to this, if your stick is able to enter into this, then you can see it is properly cooked. And then you put it on the floor and you dry it under sun for 10 days or 15 days. Then after that, they are taken to a mechanical drums, rotating drums are there. Generally, that where the cleaning of all your trash, etc., or your roots, trash, etc., are removed, and that finally you get final produce, which will be showing you yellowish in color, and that is ready for marketing. And in order to add to the add to the beauty of that, generally we go for what we call coloring. There, wherein you use a chemical what we call middle chrome, that is used in the form of powder after curing, and that adds to the color of the cured rhizomes, which are ready for marketing. And in some cases, the sprinkling of what we call the powdered curcume or turmeric powder itself, its water will be sprinkled on that. That also gives good color for the produce before it is being marketed. Ginger is very similar to this turmeric, of course. Gingiber officinale is there. Of course, in almost all food preparation, generally we get what we call ginger tea is there, and ginger use to check what we call cold, cough, etc. And generally, the requirements of ginger and turmeric are almost all the same. And generally, here also, the baby rhizomes or corms or fingerlings are used as a seed material. Here also, when they come for harvest, similarly, the plows are used to unearth the rhizomes from the soil, and generally they are cleaned. Then they are subjected to what we call curing. Curing and bleaching is there. Now, curing, bleaching, here what we do is, here the rhizomes, after cleaning with the soil, they are dipped in the cement troughs with water, and they are kept there for 24 hours or so. Then physically, whatever the superficial layer over the corm is removed, then you get the white ones. After the removal of the superficial layer from the rhizomes, what we do, even in our household, you clean, if you get rhizomes, after putting them in water, generally by using a knife or a spoon, etc., you scrape it. That removing superficial layer scraping is what we call here curing. Then after that, generally you put it in lime water. So put it in lime water, that is what we call bleaching. So by putting them in the lime water, and then they are subjected to carbon dioxide, sulfur is burnt, and the sulfur fumes are, it is kept in sulfur fumes so that your produce becomes completely bleached and ready for harvest. This dry ginger is what we call dry ginger, in Telugu what we call shonti. That is very good medicine for cough, etc. Even in Ayurvedic preparations, this is being used on a large scale. And the final one is what we call coriander, dhania, what we call coriander sativum. Of course, dhania is used in two ways. Generally, leaves, dhania, what we use in almost all the preparations. And these dhania seeds, when they are grounded, and the powder is used in making sambars and chutneys and in curries, etc. And almost our curry preparations, generally the dhania powder is used. And generally, the dhania, the seeds, generally if you split it, you get two parts, and each part is able to give a seedling. Generally, it is cultivated in Karnool, Anantapur, and Prakasham, Krishna, even in Telangana, Adilabad, Rangareddy, Medak. These are the areas where the cultivation of dhania is taken up. And generally, this is traditionally, this is a rabi crop. Traditionally, the sowing is taken up in the month of September to October. But now, this is grown throughout the year, especially for the green leaves, what we call kotimira. So for coriander leaves, generally this is raised. Because for flowering and fruiting, it may need season. But we only few people need what we call, they go for seeds. But if you don't want to raise them for seeds, you can raise them throughout the year. So good number of high-yielding varieties such as Sindhu is there, Sadhana, Swati. These are some of the high-yielding varieties. These are some of the high-yielding varieties of dhania. So generally, here it needs a fine tilth for the raising of this dhania. Generally, for seeds to sprout, it takes 12 days or so. So if you are raising for what we call dhania leaves, generally you sow the seed in high density. But of course, if you raise for seeds, generally you thin it, you pluck it, you maintain them at regular intervals in a required density, so that they come up well and you get good produce. Now, generally, this comes for harvest some 45 to 50 days. Generally, when the leaves are last, they become dried, and when the fruit start become what we call from green, they turn to what we call straw color. So that shows that the crop has come for harvest. So that is the time to harvest. You harvest by using sickles and you take it to threshing area where you leave it under sun for 3-4 days. Then by using sticks you can beat that you get your seeds, and by winnowing you separate the seeds from the trash. Then you put it under sun for 2 or 3 days. Then you bag it. That is ready for your marketing. So this is about the dhania. So we learned in today's class, we learned about what we call cash crops, especially sugarcane, your cotton, and tobacco. And then the spices, especially red gold, what we call chilies. Then we also learned about your turmeric, of course, which is famous, in South India, especially ladies use it for almost all the functions. Generally, turmeric is used, and for making what we call your Vico turmeric, or what we call your Santur soap making. Generally, in almost all the functions, traditional functions, generally women use, the paste of the turmeric. They apply it to their feet and also to the face. It has antibiotic properties, and even now doctors, after this COVID, people advise, if you suffer from what we call sore throat or cough, etc., you're advised to put a pinch of turmeric powder in hot milk, and then you get good relief. So of course, ginger also very good for all your cold and cough, etc. And even dry ginger, what we call shunti, that is also very good. And dhania we discussed about. So this is about the cash crops. And in tomorrow's class, we'll discuss about that. Will be the last class for us, and that is the last and the 6th class wherein we will discuss about the fruit crops. We discuss about mango, cashew nut, citrus, and coconut. We discuss about these 4 fruit yielding crops. Now, 2 to 3 minutes for you. If you want to interact with me, if you have any doubt, you can ask me. Ayesha and Naushin asked,